Welcome to In Conversation with Nationalist Hub. I'm Suresh Kochattil. When the 26/11 attack happened in Mumbai by Pakistani terrorists, India woke up to a new reality. But for the bravery exhibited by Tukaram Oomle in capturing one of the terrorists, Ajmal Kasab, the entire terror attack of 26/11 would have been blamed on Hindus. This was the plan of the Islamic outfits in India, aided and abetted by senior leaders of the Indian National Congress. The words like saffron terror and Hindu terror were already a part of the lexicon of the Congress party. And just to keep their vote bank happy, this dynastic party, led by a mother, a son, and a sister, would have actually been ready to sacrifice everything for the security of Bharat. One man who exposed this conspiracy that was hatched by the Congress was Shri RVS Mani, former Undersecretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs. Shri Mani wrote his first book, a telltale book, that The Myth of Hindu Terror, the insider account of the Ministry of Home Affairs, 2006 to 2010, wherein he revealed the conspiracy evidences that were there. I had in the past interviewed Mr. Mani a couple of times, and he spoke eloquently how about 26/11 happened, the Samjhauta Express, the Malegaon blast, and of course, the famous of them, the Ishrat Jahan encounter, wherein the queen of the dynasty tried to finish off the political career of the then Gujarat Chief Minister, Shri Narendra Modi. She almost succeeded, but for the crucial testimony of honest officers like Shri RVS Mani. Today, we at Nationalist Hub are proud to have Shri Mani in our studios, and we will quiz him on a range of topics, which I am sure he will respond as usual with his straight point answers, and that surely will upset many people in the political establishment across India. Security officials who played along and bureaucrats also will be upset. Welcome to the Nationalist Hub studio, Mr. Shri Mani. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you very much. I feel honored to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I remember the last time we met was in a year ago, almost in Thiruvananthapuram for the Anantapuri Hindu Sammelan.
Right.
And I'm sure I don't know where to start speaking to you, because quite often your life as a bureaucrat has been so varied and so different in different ministries across the government of India, especially in Delhi, that makes difficult to go ahead with a particular line of questions. However, let me start you as a person, a South Indian who grew up in Delhi, studied there, worked there, and finally enjoying a retired life in Delhi. Your father was also a bureaucrat, and I guess that is how your tryst with Delhi began. Am I correct?
Indeed, he had migrated to Delhi before the independence, and I was born in Delhi, and I grew up and I was bred there. So because of this, and I have had a very multicultural upbringing, so to say, notwithstanding the fact that the Sanatani culture has been imbibed in that, as well as the Tamilian culture has been, or the South Indian rich culture also has been imbibed in a multicultural environment, so that we are able to relate to each other. That's it.
The myth of Hindu terror. I mean, you wrote extensively about the Congress party and its senior leaders, and the manufactured story about how Hindu outfits are causing terrorist incidents across the country. The book was widely debated, read, analyzed. There were a lot of television debates also around it. Looking back at that book right now, since you are now going into your third book right now, in between there's the second book, The Deception, which of course I have with me here, holding it right up here. There are a lot of things that happened in that book. A lot of people in India were not aware of what really happened. And that particular book actually set off a lot of cat among the pigeons, literally speaking. How did you come to write that book?
See, the game changer was the Ishrat Jahan case. I was standing up for the truth, and now that has been validated by the courts of law. Whereas I was hounded, I was harassed because of some sort of a sportsman type background. I could stand up to those because of the body conditioning and all. I was harassed, and it was a single point agenda, that the agenda was a particular CBI director had promised the mother, as you said, had recalled, that he will put Safed Dadi and Kali Dadi behind the bars. The entire Ishrat Jahan narrative was built around that. The SIT, I mean, after the Ishrat Jahan had died, it was basically the entire thing got revived in the 2009 after 5 years after her. And it was basically an unholy agenda with the unholy agenda of trying to frame the then Chief Minister and the then Home Minister, who are incidentally the Prime Minister and the Home Minister of the country. And that was the simple point agenda. 1st December, very rarely do you find that a victim gets an entitlement to an officer, investigating officer of his choice in the SIT. But 1st December 2011 judgment of the Gujarat High Court directing setting up of an SIT was a very unique case. I do not want to go into the judgment on trying to be erring on the side of safety and caution. But while giving this mandate also, Satish Verma, the officer of the choice of the victim's kin, was given a very specific mandate even as per the order of the High Court. But he had overstepped his mandate, taken over the reins of the SIT and trying to frame all sorts of people, harassing people, witnesses. It was not that I was the only person who was harassed. A special director of IB himself has been a testimony to it, who generated the report as the station in charge of Ahmedabad. The first SSP or SP or an SSP, a Gujarat police officer, she too was harassed when I was also being harassed in a different room. A very, very vital cog. See, we are all government officers. Ishrat Jahan, Javed Sheikh, Amjad Rana and Zishan Johar. Let me put it very clear. Amjad Rana and Zishan Johar were Pakistanis living in India illegally. Having been thrown out of Kashmir once, they had somehow managed to get back into India. In the entire Ishrat Jahan narrative, nobody ever questioned their presence in the car.
One more thing, Mr. Mani, I remember distinctly this second name which you mentioned, gentleman from Kerala who was actually
Javed
Hindu.
Sheikh. Javed Sheikh was originally Pranesh Pillai. His father was still, his father is no more, but till the date of his harness, he was Gopinathan Pillai, who had been a petitioner in the case, fighting for his kin's, justice for his kin. His name was Pranesh Kumar Pillai, but he had converted, and also he was a petty criminal in the Thane area. Then he managed to go to Gulf, where he was converted, radicalized, and thereafter sent back to India to carry out these type of activities. So that was the call. That is when the calling came, because I had been privy to so many meetings, so many information. Repeatedly they would say it is a Hindu terror. If you had read my first book, Myth of Hindu Terror, an attempt was made to take me as a hostage and trade off for Ajmal Kasab, so that the Hindu terror narrative could be reinforced.
I remember they tried to kidnap you when you were trying to go on your motorcycle, if I'm not wrong.
It was a car, it was a newly purchased car.
Okay.
And somehow it failed. And after that I reported it to the Home Ministry. Within one day, Home Secretary had sent the file to the then newly brought in Home Minister, who slept on the file for 19 days before it was reported to the Commissioner of Police. So my incident, which happened on 30th and reported on 31st of December 2008, the letter was sent after the clearance from Chidambaram on 19th of January 2019 by the Special Secretary, Home Ministry. So at that time we did not join any dots. We were thinking that our minister must have been busy, and so. But later on, when the reply came, I have put a copy of the reply from the Ministry of Commissioner of Police, Delhi Police, in that. If you join the dots contained in the reply, it is very clearly shows that a police post where I had reported was practically vacant of all personnel.
You mean an empty police station
Delhi
in
empty
Delhi?
police station in Delhi.
Is it possible?
It is not possible. See, there is a case material, there are valuables, etc., which have to be placed before the evidence. That is the Kosha Kahana. Then there may be people in custody, under the police custody. If it is empty, it is an open invitation for them to escape and also loot the Tosha Khana or whatever Mal Khana or whatever it is where the seized materials are kept. They can run away with it. But it says this constable was deployed here, this SHO was deployed here, this sub-inspector was deployed here, X, Y, Z. And as a matter of fact, there was nobody in this police station. Can it be something more laughable?
Which is very strange.
It is there, it is a Delhi police letter. And later on somebody told me, don't pursue this, because it was an attempt by, this was told by a very, very senior intelligence officer, an IPS officer.
Mr. Mani, while we come back to that book and to the incident which I'm mentioning, your second book, The Deception, if you can call it that way, actually there's a character, there's a fictional, you call it a fiction, but most of us know that due to your restrictions of having been a senior Home Ministry official, there are many things which you will not speak about all your life, definitely. But in this book, through a third person account, you actually brought in a character, fictional character called Kalyan, who actually narrates the entire incident from the time that he was transferred to the Ministry of Home Affairs from an earlier ministry, and how you went through the entire process, how that person went through the entire process. I'm sure any person reading that book will understand that that person, Kalyan, is actually you. But I won't ask you that question right now. The question that I would like to ask you is, in this conversational book, you're directly speaking to the readers. And definitely, it's a thriller kind of book. Was it because you were scared of the Official Secrets Act, or you wanted to say many of the things which you couldn't say in the first book?
The disclaimer, I still stand by it, that it is a fiction, and let it remain like that for the convenience of the public at large and in the larger interest of the public, because it is not my life. It is not Kalyan's life, it could not be your life or anybody's life. There are large number of boys in ours working in different places. It is their safety and life for which let it remain a fiction. All the characters are fictitious, but
the incidents look very, very real.
Possibly, but all the places are, any resemblance is still, I would call it coincidental.
That's like a start of the movie where they put that title.
Right, that is very important, because presence of several sensitive persons in sensitive locations could be betrayed, and we do not want that. So it is in the larger national interest about how many of our agencies are doing wonderful work. See, it is not today I am saying, I have been saying for the last 10 years or so, that our intelligence agencies are doing wonderful work, and it is the political will which matters, which changes the position.
So in fact, in this book, I remember distinctly, you have numerous chapters that get into the book Deception. While we will speak about it, there was one particular conversation in that book, I remember somewhere, that you actually spoke about the Samjhota Express incident. A senior ministry official from MHA, and I'm not privy to the name, I'm sure it goes under the Official Secrets Act, went to Pakistan on a mission on behalf of the Research and Analysis Wing. I assume so again, I'm not really privy to it, or maybe it's some other intelligence agency of Indian government, and discovered something by contacting an operative there. It may be a very risky thing, because spying in Pakistan for India is like inviting a death sentence. But according to that particular tip-off which they got from Pakistan, there was likely to be a bomb about the India-Pakistan Samjhota Express. The matter was reported back to the Government of India through the Ministry of Home Affairs. It was noted, but nothing was done. There was a casual attitude towards it till that incident happened. And suddenly, it was attributed to a Hindu terrorist organization, if you can call it that. Can you clarify what exactly happened? I know you are not the person, but there may be in that book certain incidents.
Basically, leaving this as a fiction, let us see the facts as it happened, as has been captured in the other book. The Samjhauta blast happened. The US government and several others had continued to say that it was a Pakistani organized crime syndicate. Organized syndicate was headed by one Arif Kasmani, a Karachi-based crime. He was given a sort of a contract to execute this. He kept on weeping, saying that, see, if as long as the government of India says it is a Hindu terror, he would not get his remuneration for carrying out this work. So, as a consequence to that, he kept on going to all international fora and saying that, look, I have done this. Not directly saying that I have done this, the Arif Kasmani has done this. But the Indian government kept on saying that, no, this is a Hindu attack. So, this could be nothing could be more blatant than this, that the person who had done it and who has been, and as a consequence of the ISI said, Hindus have done it, so no payment to you.
I think this gentleman was also released from the Indian.
No, that is a different gentleman who really carried out the attack. Within 5 to 7 days, they were all released and Hindus are arrested. His foot soldiers were released.
They all escaped to Pakistan.
They all escaped unscathed.
Why was this being done, Mr. Mani? Because I understand there is a vote bank politics that happens in the country, and this particular party, the Indian National Congress, believes in it. But you are compromising here with the security of our country, blaming our own people when a foreign agency says they carried out the attack, and we are releasing their terrorists so that they could go back to Pakistan. Why was this being done?
It was basically a competitive or a commensurate. See, for every Islamic terror, the idea was that every Islamic terror, they wanted a compensatory in case of Hindu terror.
So, green terror versus saffron
terror. Some sort of idea was put. I have explained in all the books that how it was seeded. It all started with an attack on the RSS headquarters. I mean, the thinking caps must have been worn much before. But incidentally, let me tell you something very interestingly. Whenever any Indian VIP goes or an Indian team goes to Pakistan, there have been some problems here. So, after the composite dialogue process started with the meeting of Manmohan Singh and a famous place there it was taken, and Manmohan Singh and
I remember
Parvez Musharraf.
It's a resort where they had
January 2005.
Yes.
Where Parvez Musharraf kept on saying that we will not allow in Pakistani soil to be used for terror attacks. This composite dialogue process happened. 2005, the Indo-Pakistan Home Secretary level talks were held in India. In 2006, it was held in Pakistan. And before the delegation could come, there was an attack on the RSS headquarters in Nagpur, 1st June 2006.
That would have been possibly a starting point or a trigger for everything that followed?
On that very day, that the purported meeting which I have said with actual in position in situ Home Minister, I say de facto Home Minister, and an IPS officer who was very close to the Home Minister, de facto, had called me. I kept on saying that let the senior team of the Home Ministry come. They are coming from Pakistan. They will land by 4 o'clock. But he continued to fish for information where some Hindu terror case can be framed. But we had really neither in investigative reports nor in intelligence report. They are different. Investigation reports have evidentiary value. We did not have any such information, and that was not palatable to the in situ Home Minister, who was unattached. The person who was running the Home Ministry was something different, and his closest, and that person was from Madhya Pradesh.
So I'll come to that question. That was my next question. Actually brought me onto it pretty early. Who was running the Home Ministry? I know there was Chidambaram at one time.
No, before Chidambaram.
Shivraj Patil was there.
Shivraj Patil was a very unattached Home Minister. Even during Chidambaram's time, the same person would come and throw orders on reopening of the Batla House case. This has happened in 2010, and similarly, he had also come April 2010. There was another case of trying to release around 17 or 16 convicts, terror convicts, lodged in Gujarat jail, who were recently convicted. Those days they were lodged in Gujarat jail for 2008 Modasa blast and Ahmedabad blast, to be brought to them in transit remand to Delhi. And a meeting was called by Home Secretary. Mr. S.S. Khandwala, DG Gujarat Police, refused to toe the line, and as a consequence to that, and Commissioner of Police of Delhi also was not very keen, because they were bureaucrats. They did not want to compromise. They knew what this gentleman was up to. So that's a different story. That is there in my first book.
My guess, you said Madhya Pradesh and a senior Congress politician, that would have been Digvijay Singh.
Certainly, that I have written very openly on this.
So what was Digvijay Singh doing? He didn't take an oath of office that point in time. But what was he doing in Home Ministry, which would be handling very, very sensitive cases?
He would walk over to the Home Minister's room and throw orders at the officers. It has happened in front of me, so it could have happened with other officers also. We do not know. At least in front of me, I have not only that, whatever happened, whatever occurred in the Home Minister's chamber, room number 101 North Block, I immediately came back, reduced it into writing and informed my senior officers. This is 1st June 2006, and he was running a parallel or whatever it is, we do not know. See, basically you have to see certain things. During the UPA 1, even after the UPA 2 also, Digvijay Singh running the Home Ministry was no surprise, because there were several extra constitutional people. Somebody like John Dries, as member of the National Advisory Committee, running something on the Health Ministry side, or somebody like Shiv Kumar, a former UNICEF person, walking over to the Child Development Ministry and giving his diktats, or somebody running the MSME ministry. MSME also got finished only because of that. So it was nothing surprising for the then bureaucrats of the ministry. They should have protested. They should have asked under what authority, quo warranto, but they continued to take the suggestions or orders or whatever you call it, and then execute it. That is what happened. But in the case of Hindu terror, when I put my hands up and said that there is nothing, no evidence, no investigation report, something which had, basically any terror attack, any terror angle would be reported within 10 to 15 hours in the Home Ministry control room. We would get to seize the matter. But a terror attack which had happened in April 20, it was not a terror attack. It was called Nanded blast. Nanded blast was made out to be a first Hindu terror attack. A poor auto workshop owner who is to be a visitor to Bajrang Dal office. See, in small towns, some people set fire to their, blast their own workshop to make false insurance claim. The false insurance claim case was turned into a first Hindu terror attack. CBI investigated it. They came out with the fact that it is a false insurance claim, and that's where it happened, and that's forgotten. And what happened to that, we do not know. For RSS headquarters attack, we had adequate inputs. Not only that, 9th of May to 15th of May 2006, in Aurangabad, huge haul of arms which could have been used in a war. That is the level of arms in a Tata Sumo. I mean, the quantum was staggering, which not much was reported. It was all intended for RSS, but somehow because of the...
You mean it was intended to be used in the RSS attack?
Right.
On the RSS headquarters.
RSS. But luckily, the then DIV used his own contacts with the RSS, ensured that it was only a low-key attack.
So that means some police officers wanted to ensure that that the attack does not happen, but the attack still happened. But
attack happened, but not really to the scale in which it had been planned and prepared.
Who was behind the attack on this RSS office?
See, RSS is always, whenever Basically, I'll tell you, 2004, again, when Simmi is banned and all that, there was a clamoring for banning of RSS. An entire procedure was started, but they could not. I'm not a RSS spokesperson, I'm not a RSS, I do not have any remote connection with the RSS. Let me make it clear. But I'm talking of what is all official. An attempt was made to also ban RSS. But basically, under the UAPA Act, after Section 3, the ban is issued. Under the Section 4, there is a judicial tribunal of a sitting High Court judge which has to confirm the ban. For that, the amount of evidences and required are very, very stringent and strong, and that was not available. So, the government did not ban the RSS. On the contrary, the entire attempt was to coin this type of a Hindu terror, link it with RSS, link it with other Hindu terror organizations. Later on, one fine day, they will have adequate material to stand the scrutiny of a sitting High Court judge. So, that is the reason the entire thing was being built up.
Very shocking actually, Mr. Mani, because I don't think many common citizens in this country are really aware about what damage did the Indian National Congress do to the country, not just the country. The way they targeted specific Hindu organizations, the way they targeted RSS and others, to label them as a Hindu terror organization. It still continues. We still see Congress politicians and opposition politicians, we see MIM, everybody clamoring for a ban on RSS after PFI was banned. But this kind of insider information that Sri Mani gives us from the Ministry of Home Affairs files is something to be really understood by all our citizens. Anyway, we will leave it at that, but we will come to the next question, Mr. Mani. The investigating authorities, NIA in this case, let us take 2009 to 10, and that is when this non-existent Hindu terrorism concept was introduced. In every case that was assigned to NIA, from the Samjhauta Express blast to the Malegaon to the Ajmer Sharif, they overlooked the first set of evidences and then they went for the Hindu terror link. What do you think was the reason behind it? NIA is supposed to be a professional investigating agency.
I have very clearly told in my book that the first head of NIA, see, basically once a position is created, a DG NIA is created, there is a full process of search committee. I am not making any value judgment on the competence of the officers, but a search committee is created and a proper scrutiny and a 3-member panel is formed, out of which appointments committee of cabinet approves one name, but that type of a procedure did not happen in this case. A person was handpicked, made the DG of NIA, he brought in his own friends, his own pliable officers, made them the DIG and what not, and they started doing their work. The first case which the NIA registered was a disaster. 16/10/2009, there was a Narakasur Chaturdasi procession in which there was a clash between two groups. I do not know what was this. That was deemed as a Hindu terror. Even at the first session, Sessions Court threw it out within 6 to 8 months, which was not there. Subsequently also, in the Samjhauta blast case, now we know what is the outcome. In the Makkah Masjid case, we know what is the outcome. In Ajmer Sharif case, there are certain people who say 2 of them were convicted. I would like to ask them a question: if they were convicted, in which jail they are in presently? Because they were not found at all. They were convicted in absentia, and there are I'm not alarming anybody. I do not know. I'm not alluding anybody. It is a matter of conjecture whether they were alive or not.
They could have been bumped off somewhere.
We do not know. That's the reason I am not alluding anybody or alleging anything against anybody. So that is the reason it will be best, because it happened in Congress regime, Rajasthan, and presently Rajasthan is under Congress regime, and naturally an Ajmer Sharif convict would have been in the Ajmer jail or any jail in Rajasthan. If the Rajasthan government can come out and say that there are these 2 people who were convicted of Ajmer Sharif blast and they are in our custody, that will do a credence to the people who are shouting that Ajmer Sharif was a Hindu attack. Otherwise, simply produce those two convicts. You will not be able to produce them.
Very strange, because here's a judicial system that convicts somebody in absentia. Two Hindu youths assume so, say they are Hindu terrorists, and then actually those people don't exist.
We do not know whether they exist or not.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody has to be produced before the courts and said either this person has fled the country or still in the country or dead and gone or alive. Nobody knows.
Yeah, I still believe that they are terrorists. They must be in some jail. Did they not go in for an appeal after being convicted?
That's another question.
That's another question. So these are all questions in Ajmer Sharif case which begs an answer. Extremely sad, but this is the sorry state of affairs.
I mean, this looks like a cottage industry being run, because NIA, professional investigating agency, is worse than a state police, a district police investigation.
That was under the charge. Now, for example, now let me take you to the 26/11 interrogation of David Hadley, which was done by NIA. We all know that NIA was not the investigating agency for that. It just went on a foreign jaunt, went to Chicago, met at the behest of the Honorable Minister. It was suggested that since the crime branch of Mumbai Police, Mr. Rakesh Maurya has now come out with his own book on the truth of 26/11, which almost converges with what I have been saying. Some officer from, because as per the criminal procedure code also, he would have been the investigating officer. He would have recorded the statement as per whatever 161, 160, whatever it is. But there was no officer from the concerned investigating agency going for interrogation and questioning of our friend
David Hadley.
And NIA team goes, they come back and send a tour report, not the
interrogation report.
I do not know what type of exercise are. We do not know. Lot of things are there.
Were they running a government or were they running a Kirana store? I'm not really sure, because
that I think the best lawyer in the country, Chidambaram, who was running that, should be able to answer.
Well, Chidambaram has a lot of skeletons in his cupboard. I'm sure that he wouldn't talk about it. But let's come to Malegaon. Very, very strange case, where you said in your book that you have been forced to sign documents to fabricate the narrative of saffron terror. That's the first time you actually admitted something like that. Now, the Malegaon blast witnesses also told the NIA court that they've been forced by the Maharashtra ATS to falsely name Yogi Adityanath and several other RSS leaders in this thing. This happened in September 2008, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
The blast was carried out by Indian Mujahideen and Ahle Hadith, according to preliminary reports. But soon, Abhinav Bharat came out of nowhere. What's the truth, Mr. Mani?
Let me put certain things in perspective. It's all calendar of events. I will give you two set of calendar of events. First is 29th September 2008. Malegaon blast occurs in the evening. It is a normal criminal case. First responder is police. Local police responds, SP Rural in Nasik district. He would have responded. Thereafter, to assess the evidence and to come to a preliminary conclusion that it is a terror attack, he would have taken some time and protected the evidences and reported to his higher authorities, and the case would have been assigned to ATS, and this takes a bureaucratic work of around 2 to 3 days. 29th September, the 30th September, the core work starts. 2nd October, nobody works in the government. And you have later on, we have this Dashera holidays also falling. I'll come all to that. So, not before the 4th or 5th, the case could have been assigned to ATS, as per the simple working procedure of the government. They cannot simply say, ATS, you go and take over, there is some motorcycle blast. So, but later on what happens? Next the calendar of event is, in the Mumbai blast 2006 July serial train blast, it took them 6 to 7 months to identify the entire investigation process. ATS took 6 to 7 months to identify, collect evidence, and later on arrest the perpetrators. So Mohammed Bilal or whatever it is. In Malegaon, 2008, it is very clearly 6 days it is handed over to ATS, and within 15 days they arrest Sadhvi Pragya. In 20 days they arrest Lieutenant Colonel Purohit. And Lieutenant Colonel Purohit, even under section 45 of CRPC, to arrest a sitting army officer, you require certain prior sanctions. And that would have meant this file, even if it was to be given by the GOC Western Command, let us assume, I am not talking of GOC Delhi area, and the local regional command chief, the file would have travelled 21 desks, all of them supposed to apply their minds, examine the evidences. And they say they did it in 21 days, it is simply not possible. Because immediately on the 5th or 6th or 7th or whatever day, the ATS was assigned the work, they would not have. So my premonition is that a design was already there, a template was already there, that a terror attack would be conducted, whether through Ahle Hadith or Indian Mujahideen or whatever organization or local people, and thereafter the thing will be blamed on the Hindus by this type of a template. That is what I have been saying, number one. You talked about Abhinav Bharat. Now I will give you the timelines of Abhinav Bharat. 1903 it was created. 1953 or so, somewhere around there, it was disbanded. In 2005, it is given life again.
Who did it?
See, it's headquartered in Maharashtra. The Charity Commission of Maharashtra or the political leadership in Maharashtra should have given it. Certainly, Abhinav Bharat with a Congress or a Congress NCP coalition government in Maharashtra, even if all the papers were okay, they would not have given it. Had they given it, even if they given it, the charity commissioner or the registrar of society, it brings to question, the next question is, who approved it ultimately? So that is the reason I always say, even the revival of Abhinav Bharat seems to be engineered to meet the, see, for creating a narrative, you create an instrument.
I remember there was a huge amount of money, I'm not really sure of the exact amount, maybe around 70 to 80 lakhs, that was deposited by somebody in the account, the bank account of Abhinav Bharat. It was obviously deliberately done so that they could be framed in it.
Exactly. There are adequate reports that from where the money has come, a detailed investigation can certainly reveal.
I was told, I'm not really sure, Mr. Mani, but that a senior union minister was involved in this transaction during the Congress era, was involved in this transaction. I don't have the complete details, but I'm just doing a bit of speculation to see whether that is actually true.
There is a possibility. We cannot rule out the possibility, because the entire idea was to create a monster, give it the name of the monster, and give it the tag of Hindu monster, give a religion to the monster, and for all these things you require these type of resources, and they were all flowing from the government funds. We do not know, public funds. A minister would not have done it from his own pocket. So this begs a question, it could have certainly happened. This question also begs an answer. Deeper investigation into it may perhaps reveal the details.
I think there are a lot of things that the Modi government can actually do, because we will come to 2611 after some time, but I think there are a lot of skeletons that were hidden during the UPA 1 and UPA 2, where serious compromises were made with national security, the defense of the country, and of course the entire integrity of our armed forces and our civil and police officials also. But coming back to this question again that I often asked, Sherlock Holmes in his books usually asks, whenever he sees a murder scene, the first question he would ask is, who benefited from this murder? Now obviously the question with creating an Abhinav Bharat or creating a Hindu saffron terror link and all that kind of stuff, who actually benefited? I know it's a very obvious question, but Mr. Mani, coming from you, I think it would be actually more credible than what I would say.
It is competitive. It was trying to create a false, it's a process of appeasement. So I am trying to placate that since you people are carrying out terror, and that is well known to the country. See, in all the parliament questions replied, nowhere has the government said there is a Hindu terror. It always says Pak-based, ISI-sponsored, POK-based terror organizations have been found responsible for these attacks.
And where did this saffron terror come from?
I do not know. In the parliament question, which is the ultimate truth, where no officer or nobody would try to lie, excepting in one parliament question where I have pointed out Lok Sabha question number 78, answered on 2nd March 2009, where Chidambaram had changed the reply, and for not agreeing to the reply, he changed the joint secretary. These are all matters of record. Generally, the trend was POK-based, ISI-sponsored terrorist outfits are creating terror attacks in the country.
So the government in one voice was saying something else.
Right.
The party in another voice was saying something else.
Right.
They were basically trying to give a clean sheet. The Congress was trying to give a clean sheet to the Pakistani establishment, the ISI, as whoever it is doing the attack from there, and trying to say, no, it is the Hindu organizations which are carrying out this terror attack, not Pakistan militants or Pakistani terrorists. Am I right?
You are right, and the consequence of that is that the real perpetrators escaped.
26/11 is a case in point.
Exactly. Now 26/11 also, again the External Affairs Minister has shown a very muscular approach in calling out in the recent counter-terrorism conference.
Now when you come to the 26/11, I had spoken to you earlier also in a couple of interviews on this. There are many pieces in the jigsaw puzzle. As I said, if Ajmal Kasab hadn't been caught, obviously the entire thing would have been blamed on the Hindu terrorist because he was wearing a sacred thread on his right hand and all that kind of stuff. But Mr. Mani, even we debated this earlier. How can a group of people carrying huge amounts of luggage pass through an Indian
Kolivara,
forget the one before that, through the seas? I believe that they were detected before, but they were allowed to go. Is it true?
I will take you to the statement of Honorable P. Chidambaram, the Minister for Home Affairs, dated 11th December 2008. He gave in the Lok Sabha suo motu. It said, we had inputs. The Indian Navy had sighted the terrorists in the Pakistani waters. But later on, since no further inputs were forthcoming, they abandoned the surveillance. Now, this is the statement. This is more or less, it may not be ad verbatim, but certainly this is the statement which says. I have my reservations. I associated myself with security agencies. I know security agencies, I know their grain. If they sight a hostile element, even in Pakistan, they will lay in wait. They will never abandon. That is even a normal security guard in your society won't do it. An hostile element sighted. And you have an intelligence to back that.
And they let this boat go.
No, wait. Unless and until somebody else, superior, directs them to either be redeployed there, they are redeployed to some other place. There is a possibility that they were redeployed to some other place, or directed to come back and dock back in the nearest port of call, so that that particular MV Hussaini can get a free passage into India.
No, let me put this in a very simple way to our viewers.
I said directions have come up from somewhere.
That's right. So I'm trying to put it in a very simple language to the viewers of Nationalist Hub. What Mr. Mani tells, and of course he doesn't tell many things because he cannot say many things on record, but somebody in the Government of India establishment asked the Indian Navy or the Indian Coast Guard, who was sighted that particular Pakistani ship or a boat, to back off and not track it from that point. They made an unhindered journey from the Pakistani waters to Mumbai. Everybody knows that 26/11 is a game that was played between the Congress party and Pakistan. This was the first proof of it. But there's more to follow that. Mr. Mani, I remember this entire incident. Once they land in Mumbai, they walk through the Kolivada, which is a fisherman's village. An ordinary person traveling through a Kolivada in the evening, forget evening, even in the morning time, would be looked at with suspicion.
Right.
And here are a dozen young men carrying a lot of luggage with them, walking through that. What exactly would have been your thoughts if this had happened?
I don't think without the local support they would have walked through the Kolivada. Maybe, and local support not at the commoners level. Some leader of the Kolivada community, the fishermen's community, especially of that area or that state, coming from the coastal area, must have certainly given an indication, so that they were, the entire Kolivada was looking the other way when 10 people have swam across and come out on a dinghy to the Kolaba. After 2-3 kilometers they swam into the river, into the Kolivada. So it is not possible to believe that they walked through the Kolivada without being questioned even by one person or spotted by even one person.
One more question, Mr. Mani. Forget them walking through it. There was a source which helped them walk through it. We understand it cannot happen without internal thing. That point in time, I mean, I've been in Mumbai a number of times, and I'm sure that in an evening like that, to get a cab from a place like Kolaba, is it really possible? And they would have taken a dozen cabs, or at least 6 cabs at least minimum, to carry all those people. Is it possible to get cabs without local support?
Minimum 4 cabs they must have taken, because one to CST, one to Shabad House, one to Leopold, that's what Shabad House,
Yeah.
one to this Trident, and one to Trident, and of course Taj. But the question again is, one is about the cab. Was there cars waiting? How did they travel? These are all questions which never got answered. And for the purpose of, again I spoke about the Lok Sabha start question 78 reply. When it was asked, in fact the text of the reply says, Ajmal Kasab has confessed to receiving local help, full stop. But the investigation agencies did not find merit or something like that.
I mean, here is a terrorist who's confessing,
Right.
and investigating agencies are told that.
Was the investigation process being managed from North Block? That's $1 billion question.
I mean, there are a lot of things actually went wrong. I remember distinctly you telling me that the NSG was sitting at the Delhi Technical Palam area from 11:30 or maybe 12:30 in the
12 noon.
12
Actually,
midnight.
my information was midnight, but I think Sandeep Unnitan, another journalist, has also written on this. He is also saying that it was around 11:45 they reached. Around that time they reached, and for 2 hours they were sitting in the Palam.
They were not allowed to take off for Mumbai, where there's a terror attack ongoing. People are being killed. And here is the NSG team sitting in an aircraft inside at the Delhi Palam area, waiting for what?
For the minister to lead them.
Does the minister lead a commando operation?
I do not know. Let him go. I wish if we had been the case, he should have gone to Kargil.
This is Mr. Shivraj Patil.
This was Shivraj Patil.
Did somebody call Mr. Shivraj Patil's office or home to say that these people are waiting for you?
3 to 4 calls were made from the control room of MH8 and his office. There was a private additional PS or PA वहाँ पे. He said, मंत्री जी सो रहे हैं, अभी मैं आपको पूछ के बताता हूँ. It is not about this waiting. It is also as a first aid, as a first responder, let us pull out certain local resources of the security available in Mumbai, like the Central Industrial Security Force, who are very well trained in vital installations like hotels and all. Hotels, railway stations and all. We have the CRPF battalion in Navi Mumbai. Any or Central CISF in Indian Mumbai Airport, CISF in Rashtriya Chemicals and Fertilizers. There are so many other central security forces were available, and it was all saying that let us, for the time you take your own time, let the energy go at their word whenever you are free will, But till that time, let us do some sort of a damage control.
They were not allowed to come. CISF was
No response. See, he did not give any, we call it pocket veto. He simply pocketed the proposal and kept quiet.
A home minister of a country, an attack is going on. I'm sure the prime minister should not have slept that day night. I mean, does nobody in command?
I did not sleep that night. I do not know about
In fact, that is another thing, Mr. Mani, I forgot, I mean, our viewers should know this, that Mr. Mani was the only gentleman in the control room that day, at a senior level, who was present. Where were the rest of the Ministry of Home Affairs officials?
They were all in a delegation, as I said, Home Secretary level talks with Pakistan in Islamabad.
On the day when the terror attack was happening.
See, what happened was the talks were only for 25th, but it was extended by 1 day because the Pakistanis left the agenda unfinished.
So 25th, when the terror attack was actually happening.
26th.
26th. The 25th evening, they should have come back to India, the Ministry of Home Affairs
Right.
officials. They did not come back. They were persuaded by the Pakistanis to stay back till 26th.
Right.
So that there would be nobody in the Ministry of Home Affairs when the attack actually happened.
Not only that, Rahman Malik, the Pakistani Interior Minister, gave them an appointment for a courtesy call and some protocol at 3 p.m. of Pakistan time, that is 3:30 p.m. Delhi time. And that also extended for some time, where he offered hospitality at Muri.
Which is the hill station?
Very close to the Islamabad, there is a hill station. But forget about being a hill station, the communication system at Muri at those days were very poor.
That means the Ministry of Home Affairs officials could not be contacted, or they could not contact anybody.
Exactly.
But I remember there was one officer who was not supposed to be in that delegation, who actually wormed his way into that delegation. Is it true?
Yes. See, you have to join the dots. I have spoken about a prominent politician from Maharashtra who is no more with us, representing the Kolivada community. He used to wield a lot of power on the Kolivada. He had tried to divert the attention of the parliament and nation by giving priority to Hemant Karkare's murder, over the killing of 170 people in the Mumbai attack in the Rajya Sabha on 19th December 2008.
Again, it's a deliberate attack. Isn't it deliberately done?
Deliberately. His roles have to be seen. The introduction of a particular officer into the delegation who was not otherwise, as per the functional domain and normal protocol, not included. The suggestion, I would not call it a
I have
order,
a name.
Suggestion.
Do you want me to state that name?
No. Leave it. Anybody
Okay.
can check the book of 90 or my book or 19th. I have given the Lok Sabha debate in that. 19th December 2008 Rajya Sabha debate. All 3 pointers are given you. So the names you can find out from that book.
No, the very strange, as you rightly said, connecting the dots of 2611 makes a very disturbing reading. A lot of people have asked me, so okay, if this is done, why is the Modi government not conducting an inquiry? Maybe because they didn't want to bring out too many skeletons, because even the security officials would have got involved. Because I remember NSG reaching Mumbai 4.5 hours late and then told to wait in Mumbai airport because the minister wanted a protocol, guard of honor. There is a terror attack going on in the Taj.
The war, basically the war.
There's a war going on and the minister wants a guard of honor.
See, basically there are other issues also. Why the Modi government cannot really go in for a SIT. They must be aware of the facts and would have checked the papers, which I have also consulted. Because certain things, if it tumbles out, will allow Pakistan to grandstand.
They'll say, we did it, India did it.
Right. India recruited Pakistanis to do it, something like that. And number 2, we had shared all the evidences. We had shared several dossiers, but our great friend Mr. P. Chidambaram on the last week of 2011, March 2011, demolished the credibility of all the evidences by a single stroke. Let me make it very clear.
How did he do that?
See, we were always sharing evidences of Indian or fugitives from Indian law living in Pakistan several times, including evidences, records, everything. What he did was, In 2011 March, there was again this jamboree of Home Secretary level talks, and those who prepare the dossiers were deliberately not involved, and he gave it to a third party. Another investigation agency, government agency only, who were not adept at making the evidences. I do not know whether Chidambaram, because that was prepared by the caged pilot. Those days the caged pilot, parrot.
As the Supreme Court said.
As it prepared. And there were two glaring mistakes of people whose name appeared in the dossier were found to be in Indian jails.
So again, it was deliberately done.
It was deliberately done. What happened? Pakistan started grandstanding, saying that, look, your dossiers are all bloody bunch of lies. See, this fellow is already there. Other may also be living in India. So Chidambaram has done it. That is the reason the government is not able to reopen the case, because it will allow the Pakistan to grandstand.
This is shocking, Mr. Mani. Actually, I know that, opening up a Pandora's box, as they call it, literally, but that would create a huge amount of things.
And also, in one of the dossiers, certain reference between a conversation with Asif Zardari with the External Affairs Minister, which was not found to be true. We do not know whether someone else could have been speaking to him, impersonated him, or impersonated the name.
I think to discuss this entire thing, maybe Mr. Mani, next time you are in Hyderabad, we will just need to devote 1 hour on 2611, because I've done this number of times with you, but each time we speak, there is something new that tumbles out from you, because you carry a lot of your secrets with you, but many of which you can't disclose for obvious reasons. But in the book Deception, you did, there was a conversation with your father, who was also a ministry official earlier. Was it Ministry of Home Affairs?
He was in Ministry of Home.
Okay, so that you are a second generation that is there now. But he did speak about many things in that. I remember something on the Khalistanis and other things. Would you like to make a passing mention on that?
Yes, certainly. First they tried to create a Khalistan militancy. Let us be very clear that in 1971 war, during those days, the Sikhs constituted almost 30% plus of the Indian security forces. And one of the major lynches, the top commanders were also Chandpuri, Arora, Sumed Singh, all these things were Sikhs. Of course, J.F.R. Jacob and Manek Shah also were not treated with any dignity by the Congress. So there was a deliberate attempt to reduce the number of, this was what I call, my father used to call the unwritten part of Shimla Agreement, 4 July 1970.
Agreement between Indira Gandhi and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto.
And immediately after that only UN, our friend Bhutto, went on to say in 1974 of bleeding India with 1,000 cuts. Immediately after, you can see the sequence. And the Khalistani movement triggered. First, how? By escalating the Damdami Taxals, first creating the cleavage of killing by the Nirankari person in Delhi, then escalating the Damdali Taxal into a militant organization. It's a huge story.
I think even Bhindranwale was created.
Bhindranwale was out of Damdami Taxal only.
Yeah.
And another part was another thing is, instead of joining the army, there are two, militancy and migration were the two vices used to distract the Sikh youth from joining the security force. Migration, you see the trend of migration. Rapid migration by marriages, by all sorts of means. You know this Kabutar Baji, what they call it, where the music troops used to carry and people used to abscond. Migration really triggered off after 75. Similarly, militancy was also seeded. So that the Sikh youth, and what has happened is the migrated people are only funding the militancy movement now. Unfortunate.
From Canada and other places.
Unfortunate. But the question is, first they created the bogey of Sikh terror, Sikh militancy. Now they attempted the bogey of creating the falsehood of Hindu terror. We do not know what next.
So, Mr. Mani, as we close this conversation, it's a wonderful, eye-opening conversation and some shocking things that have come to the fore. But compared to UPA 1 and 2, and we saw how the security establishment then reacted, we have so many bomb blasts, right from German bakery to Mecca Masjid here. We have, we had the Gokul Chaat blast here. We had the Lumbini Park blast. Many places across the country had bomb blast. But since Modi ji took over in May 2014, we haven't seen any major terror attack. Okay, but for Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast, which are anyway disturbed areas, the only Coimbatore blast recently was the only exception at that point. Do you think our security forces are now using the human and technological intelligence to better use?
Two things. One, diplomacy and security, they are as good as the leadership wants them to be or allows them to be. Now, that is very clear nowadays. You see the tone and tenor of the present External Affairs Minister against what he spoke in the Western media narratives, what he has been speaking in this counter-terrorism conference, what he spoke in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization recently. It is a muscular way. Northeast had seen a lot of good things, lot of pleasantness, disaffection is gone. Till 2018, you had seen, I have written an essay on this. See, I have a third book called When Money Writes.
That's coming up, is it?
It is already available.
Okay.
It is available on Amazon and it's by Garuda publication. There are compilation of essays which I have written, on which even on Northeast, how I said, Sampark se Samadhan from in Northeast, and that's a very good opener of how the things were changed by Northeast overnight. Disaffection controlled, livelihood issue, infrastructure. But now what has happened is recently, some Chinese and Pakistani, the China-Pakistan ISI things are now re-entering the Northeast and creating disturbance, whether it is the Assam-Mizoram border, intra-border disputes or some sort of a seeding is there. So, I always keep on saying that we are not fighting last CDS said, the deceased CDS, that we are fighting a 2.5 front war. I say we are fighting a 3.5 front war.
In fact, that's exactly the point, Mr. Mani, because there's so many imponderables that come to play here. I mean, you are seeing the security establishment, when you were in the Ministry of Home Affairs, you've seen it up close and personal out there. The security system, how the mess is in the establishment, the bureaucrats trying to protect themselves, the political establishment trying to make a mess of it. I mean, India faces the same kind of threat that Israel does, maybe not as strong as Israel does, but the way we need to react to it, and you brought out those points very well, and I'm really thankful to you for sparing your time. The last 1 hour just flew past, and I'm sure that next time you are in Hyderabad, whenever you come to Hyderabad, you're always welcome to our studios, and we would love to talk to you a lot more in detail so that the nation knows and the people knows and the viewers of Nationalist Hub also know what really is happening, what happened during the UPA 1 and 2 era and what's happening now. There's a huge difference in the security perceptions. This is Suresh Kochattil here, signing off for the Nationalist Hub in Conversations. Thank you for watching. And Mr. Mani, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I am also honored that you gave the platform. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.